Hi, this is Tim Santoni, and welcome to Santoni Spotlight. Today, I'm joined by Ken Kladouris. Thanks, Ken, for joining the show. I really appreciate it. Before we get started, maybe give our viewers a sense of background, what it is you do, and give some context for our conversation.
Thank you for having me. So I'm a partner at Platinum Wealth Group, and we've been in business now for 2 years there. But I've kind of always known I wanted to be a financial advisor. So I've been very strategic in kind of the path I led going forward. So, whether it was getting an undergraduate degree in finance, MBA in finance, and then kind of working in the broker-dealer just to learn the back office and really how the operations works. That way when I'm, out talking to people, I understand what can and cannot be done.
Sure.
And then, a few years ago, I went through some development as a person, which obviously changed the business. And a result of that would be the book. It was another way for me to put myself out there and really help more people than I was already helping.
Gotcha. So you've worked in different areas of finance, and now what is it that you focus in on when you're working with clients? What is it the top 2 or 3 things that you like to really focus on?
It's interesting because when you talk about finance and wealth management, everybody has like their little niche, and really I like to focus really on what their end goal is. More than the investments or anything like that, because I can geek out on investments, but most people really don't care, and they're like, really this is my goal and that's what I want to do. So when it comes to, their goal, then we kind of work backwards and figure out what the best solution is today to really get them to where they're going.
Yeah. It's interesting, and the chance to talk with Ken and learn about him a little bit more deeper. While he's at the core is just about financial planning and different instruments and tools, I think that he really does understand learning about more about the people and strategy and understanding what makes sense. And you said that working in certain environments in your past makes you really understand what clients are dealing with now and the questions they might have. But maybe talk a little bit about what kind of, we had some conversations previously about different particular clients and different tools that you're able to use to help people with planning, retirement, all those different things. So maybe get a sense of what you and your firm are focused on now.
Okay. Yeah, like as I mentioned before, we really focus on what's called the alternative space, so non-traditional assets, not stocks and bonds.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about that, really what it is, just different things that create maybe higher cash flow or long-term returns for a client. In the book I tell a lot of stories of different clients that, whether they want to, supplement their income a little bit more or just, have another source of income coming in. Different things like that. So, we really focus on that, and it's really makes an impact on the long term. We also do 1031 exchanges for individuals that are looking to, really get out of real estate, but they want to avoid the tax situation, but they're looking for a passive vehicle that allows them just to, get some nice passive income and, things like that.
Gotcha. So when you're working with clients, what are the top 3 things or 2 or 3 things that you hear them saying that you just raise red flags in your mind?
Red flags.
Yeah, or things where your antenna goes up and you're like, hey, you just know that there's something that's maybe not quite right, or you want to dig a little bit deeper based on what you're seeing.
It's interesting. I've had some clients that had very poor advice in the past, and it's always interesting to see kind of how they got there. And, so many people, are detached from their investments, and they really just kind of put money away and don't really pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had a client recently that, we're sitting there talking. He's like, my worst fear is being Bernie Madoff. And I'm like, that makes sense. And then he comes and tells me that he wrote a check to somebody to do an investment, just like an individual person. And I'm like, that's how you get that to happen, right? You don't give some random guy money and say, oh yeah, let's buy, whatever it might be. So, you just got to be very clear on what you want, and then just make sure you have the proper team in place.
And do you think that people like that are inclined to cut a check to someone because maybe they're not well informed, or they're too afraid to ask, like they feel like maybe they should know more, or they just think that that's what everyone else does? Like why would, while they're saying one thing, their actions are totally contrary to that belief and actually leading them to that exact scenario, right? Where they're Ponzi scheme or other things. Like, is it, what do you find? Is it lack of education? Is it just they're scared? Like what's driving that?
There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I would say that there's a combination really of just bad information and trust. So, you see this person out there all the time, maybe they go to your church, kids softball. You assume they're very successful, and, they're like, oh, by the way, we're buying this, building, why don't you give us some money? And then they just do, because they kind of see that person in the community, and that's kind of how it leads to it. They don't really do the due diligence. They don't do backgrounds. They're just comfortable with it and kind of just go with the flow because they don't want to have those tougher discussions and ask the questions and really dig in. They'd rather just write a check and move on and save face in the community.
Sure. So writing a book is a lot of work. So what made you go down that path? What triggered you to say, hey, I think I want to document these stories and go through the process of writing that?
Yeah.
Documenting everything. So
there was a couple of things. Like I said, I was doing some personal development on myself, and it changed the conversations I was having with clients too, as I became a different person. And as I focused more on their stories, what was leading them to their success, and really just hearing the passion that the really successful people have for the business that they do, right? They don't think about going to work. They're like, I get to do this today, and, really go out there. So, it was a combination of that. And then I was like, these are really good stories, and I can only have so many conversations, but if I put them into a book, I can share that with more people. So it was a great way to, share those stories and I think really inspire people that they don't have to be disconnected from their finances.
And in the process of writing the book, and as you share that with different people, what's some of the feedback that you've been receiving from people that have had a chance to give it a read?
Yeah. So, it's funny, you tell people you wrote a finance book, and they don't want to read it. They're like, they kind of put it down. But like I said, it's a lot of stories, and it's mostly inspirational. So most of the feedback has been inspired. So I've had 3 people actually tell me that I've inspired them to write their book, which was something I didn't expect to get back. And that was for me the most kind of impactful, because I feel like writing a book is a big undertaking.
Sure.
Took a couple years, and then so just to inspire others to write their story.
And so we'll definitely link up in the show notes below how to get a copy of the book, but it is called Get There by Ken Kladouris.
But really, like I said, it's an inspiring book of just really, where do you want to go? What does that vision of your life look like? And then how do we get you there?
Gotcha.
So it was fed right into the title, right? Get there. You're trying to get somewhere, let's get there together and really have fun.
So before people obviously make decisions and talk strategy and do business with you, obviously building trust is a big thing. But besides writing the book, what are some other things that you found are valuable in building trust with potential clients or people that you're looking to do business with?
Trust is, improvisers, right? It's all about no trust, like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No like trust.
No like trust.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And it's really just being in front of people, and I think being authentic and really being yourself and who you are, is a great way just to attract the kind of people you want to attract. I don't want a client that comes to me and expects one thing and I can't deliver that because it's not who I am. Mm-hmm. So being myself, being in the community, just being active and a lot of different things has really helped me just build trust and, be out in the public and have fun.
Very good, very good. So when you're not spending time, writing books and consulting with clients and looking at strategy and finance, where do you like to spend some of your personal time, or some hobbies, interests that you have?
So I started sailing 3 years ago, and that was part of the story in the book as well. So I spent a lot of time on the water, whether it's sailing, power boats. So that's kind of my biggest time of fun would be on the water. Also spend a lot of time with family, so I'm lucky enough that most of my family is local. So.
Very good, very good. Well, Ken, thanks for taking some of your time out of your busy schedule to talk with us. If you have any questions for Ken, please leave them in the show notes below, and we'll make sure we get an answer back to you. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Ken.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.